Today, we become legends.
Wondering what to play to climb the ranked ladder with the new reset in 10.4? Well, this video has you covered. My name's Inter, and these are the top 3 meta gods for every Conquest role in SMITE. This list is a combination of my own experience in Diamond Ranked, not had a chance to climb to Masters yet, weep for me in the comments, while also taking into account pick ban rates, SPL performance and general community consensus. Also, quick note that I won't be considering Ishel for the list as she's so new and not even available in Ranked as of recording, plus I don't even know if she would be top 3, she seems to be one of the more balanced releases of the last few years. But with that said, let's jump in. But first, a word from our sponsor. Final Fantasy XIV Online is a rich and expansive MMO featuring a detailed story quest, all the MMO elements you'd expect, and more, like the iconic jobs system with 14 different ones to choose from. And the best part, you can play all jobs on one character, so there's no need to be constantly restarting if you want a change of playstyle. If you're looking for a modern MMO that's in touch with the genre's classic roots, Final Fantasy XIV Online is the one for you. Hell, it's literally 2 games in one. What more could you ask for? You can download the game via Steam or the official website and try it out for free all the way up to level 60 with no game time restrictions, so you can enjoy the game at your own pace and see if you like it before making a purchase. So what are you waiting for? Hit the link in the description below to get Final Fantasy XIV Online and support the channel. You won't regret it. So first up we have the ADC role, where other than one new addition since my last episode of this series, not too much has changed. Cernanos is first up, who despite a major nerf to his shred in 10.4 is still showing up a lot in the SPL and having high pick ban rates and win rates in ranked as well. Cern has some of the best lane pressure in his class with solid clear from his 2 and AoE autos, great boxing in lane due to his 1 and even solid team fighting due to his giant AoE polymorph. He also benefits a lot from the current high attack speed crit builds since he doesn't have a built-in steroid, but with the meta builds right now, you don't even need one to still reach very high attack speed. Next up is the new face, and that's of course Martikaras. I'll preface this by saying Marty can also work pretty damn well in mid, but sees more play in ADC, so he'll be here for the list. We all know Marty is strong with some of the safest and strongest wave clear in his 2-1 combo, great boxing due to his passive tick damage on autos, and built-in steroid that can last an extremely long time. But a huge reason for Marty's strength is his ultimate, which hits insanely hard while making him pretty much immune for the 3-second duration, which helps enormously for dealing with ganks and keeping safe in teamfights. It can also be used aggressively to secure kills under tower or in the enemy backline, since there's pretty much nothing the enemy can do about Marty ulting them besides Aegis really. If you build ability based, which you definitely should on this guy, this ability hits for around 2000 damage pre-mitigations in the late game, which is just insane. Our final ADC for the list is a familiar face, and that's Ishtar. Similar to Cernanos, Ishtar took a solid nerf in 10.4 to her early game wave clear with strike shot being nerfed, but remains a well-rounded ADC with pretty much everything you need. Great lane pressure and clear, good team fighting, good CC, decent but not amazing mobility, and great damage, both to gods and objectives. She pokes well, she boxes well, she can dive aggressively fairly well too, and is hands down the most versatile hunter. You all know Ishtar, she's been top 3 and arguably top 1 in the ADC role since her release, and she remains there for this list, though I think she has dropped off quite a bit from her peak performance. Moving on to some mid laners though, where the meta has shifted a bit due to changes to the books. Despite being one of the best tablet users, Merlin still remains a top mid laner in this patch, as he can just as easily use Spear of Deso or Doomorb Rush and pump out some of the most absolute raw damage in his class, due to having 6 abilities plus the ult for a bit of extra, which when you're building Deso is up way more than you would think. He's very well rounded for this reason and performs well at all stages of the game, but especially good in team fights, around objectives, and of course for sieging and defending against sieges. He's probably the best mid laner or outright the best god there is for that purpose, due to his artillery poking playstyle. He can be a little unsafe due to his short range blink on a long cooldown, but if you watch your positioning and utilize his excellent range and poking, you should be good to go on the Master Wizard in 10.4. Next up is Agni, who has somewhat rocketed into the meta with the new Doomorb, Deso and Tahuti rushes we've been seeing. Since Agni is one of the absolute best mages to scale with power in the game. His 3 ults hit for a total of 195% scaling, his dash scales well and does a ton if it hits more than a few ticks, even his passive has 50% scaling, so the high power Doomorb and Rodder Tahuti work great, while Deso's passive taking 6 seconds off of his ult that is only on a 10.8 second cooldown with max CDR. He basically gets more than half a bomb for free when this procs, and of course all the usual stuff Agni is known for, like his incredible jungle fights with bombs over the wall, great early wave clear with the aggro dash, etc, all make him super strong in this meta. And finally we have Hebo, who has fallen off a little bit since a few patches ago, but is still able to delete people by just hitting his 3, which especially in ranked where people don't position or communicate as well, you can win a team fight with this on its own. Just delete one of the enemy DPS and either snowball over the rest of the fight or group up for objectives in a 5v4. He does have a slightly weak early game, but Doomorb and Deso Rush builds help that out a lot compared to the slow book and tablet builds of the last few patches. It's worth noting that Hebo is also a solid jungler, but like Matikaras, he sees more play in mid, so I put him here for the list. You all know what Hebo can do at this point, he's been meta for a while, and he's still doing it in 10.4. Moving on to some top supports right now though, which has had a pretty huge shakeup since my last episode, with the 10.3 update making some healer supports viable. The first of those is of course Aphrodite, who last patch was by far the best support and probably the best god in the game, but even after some pretty solid nerfs in 10.4, still remains top 3 for support, especially in ranked. She's a little less successful in the Pro League because coordination to burn her ult and dive her can work fairly well, but she is still giving backliners and junglers 150 to 200 procs in the late game, doing solid healing, massive damage boosts, and of course that huge immunity from the ultimate. She has a bit of a weak early game, but once she gets online a little bit, she can very easily carry if you just find your most competent teammate and pocket them the whole game. She's fallen off a bit since 10.4, but remains top 3 in my opinion, and the data says she's still performing well. Next up is Yamoja, who I feel like hasn't missed a single top 3 gods for every role list since I started doing these. Her Omi passive just fundamentally breaks the game by allowing her to cast abilities in rapid succession and adapt to whatever situation she's in. Her ultimate walls are extremely powerful when used right, and if you have a good Yamoja, you should definitely be considering her for support right now. She is one of the hardest gods in the game to play to an optimal level, but if you can, then just do it. She's insane. And finally we have another support that can heal, and a surprising amount at that with the buff to his 3, and that's of course Horus. Making his 3 be on a base 10-second cooldown was an enormous buff, not only to his healing but also his mobility to get around fights and peel effectively. That's a 6-second cooldown at max CDR, which is just insane. All the usual Horus things still apply too, like his disgusting CC chain, great early pressure and damage, and ultimate that can win fights on its own when used correctly. This buff just tipped him over the edge into being a top 3 support right now. And quickly before we move on, I want to mention Hel and Nox, who I don't think are quite top 3, but are also performing really well in support right now. Moving on to some solo laners though, which has shifted quite a lot since my last entry in this series. First up is Hercules, who got some of the biggest buffs in return for the healing reduction in 10.3. 2 seconds off of his 2-1 combo makes him an absolute menace in teamfights, forcing beads or outright killing people if you can land a pluck at the start of the fight into your whole team. His 3 is still amazing for diving and synergizes really well with Breastplate of Regrowth, which is one of the best solo lane items right now. He has a great early laning phase, amazing mid game, and can even do stuff late game now where he struggled a bit before due to the aforementioned cooldown decrease on his core combo. Herc is absolutely one of the top solo laners in this meta. Next up is a very new face who I don't think has ever seen a placement in this series before, and that's Vamana. With the changes to his ult to not make it hard countered by Ankh anymore, as well as utilising a lot of good bruiser items right now, makes Vamana a force to be reckoned with if you prefer a more damage and dive heavy solo laner. There's very little you can do about Vamana ulting into your backline unless you can jump over a wall. Even Aegis is often not enough due to Vamana's ult lasting 6 seconds base and extending if he is hit during it. The sheer amount of stuff Vamana ult gives is kinda crazy, with 100 power being the key reason he hits so hard. That's 100 extra damage for free on all of his ult basics with little you can do about it. Vamana is especially good in uncoordinated ranked and casual lobbies where teams can't focus him down quickly enough, and at minimum he trades himself for one backliner and then dies, with the potential to run over the whole backline if given a chance. He's a little riskier than your average solo laner, but if you have a good Vamana, this is definitely the meta to use him in. Also worth noting that Vamana sees a bit of play in jungle as well if you want to try him there. And finally, the last spot for solo was pretty contested between Guan and Hades. Hades is still really strong despite nerfs and forces solo laners to build sub-optimally by making them buy magical defense super early and dominating the laning phase. But I think overall Guan is a slightly stronger solo laner at the moment. The addition of his CDR applying to all allies from his 1 makes him excellent for both diving to reset his jungler's cooldowns and backlining to reset his carry's cooldowns. He's very well rounded with a solid laning phase, great team fighting due to his heal and AoE huge stun on the ultimate. There's just not much that Guan can't do, and while he might not excel in specific areas like Herc and Vamana can, he's a great all-round pick that's especially good if you're not confident in your solo lane skills. And last but certainly not least, we have the jungle role, and first up is Ao Kuang. While not seen as much if at all in the Pro League due to coordination and excellent team play neutering his game plan a little bit, for ranked and casuals Ao Kuang is still insane with the ability to delete both tanks and squishies alike due to his absurd damage and the execute on his ultimate. He's one of, if not the best solo carry jungler if you don't think you can rely on your teammates in ranked and casuals, and while he does have a very slow early game, once he gets 2 to 3 items online he starts deleting people and continues to do that for the rest of the game. Absolutely a top 3 jungler right now. Next up is a new face that got an enormous buff in patch 10.4, and that's of course Circuit. The addition of up to 30% free crit chance is a buff that can't be overstated. Circuit can now build just Rage and Deathbringer and have 100% crit chance, or even skip the Rage and rely on 55% crit chance with just Deathbringer, to leave the rest of her build open for other options like Pen, Magi's, whatever you need really. And of course, that classic fatty Circuit burst damage is still there as it always has been. In fact, it's even higher now, especially on her 1, which can crit for 780 plus 300% scaling if all 3 hits crit. This buff was all Circuit needed to rocket into the meta. And finally, we have Mercury, who has been a force in the meta pretty much since 10.1 and is still performing well in 10.4 due to no nerfs to him or his item pool. Crit is still insanely good, and of course Mercury is one of the best users of crit in the entire game. He has a bit of a slow early game, but faster than Ao Kuang for sure, and has almost a stronger late game presence, with the ability to just delete backliners in 2 or 3 basic attacks at full build. He can gank unconventionally up lanes and avoid wards with his ultimate. He has insane objective and structure damage, which helps a lot if your ADC has brain rot. Other than the weak early game, Mercury has pretty much no downsides in this meta, and you should definitely be playing him if he's not banned in ranked. Quick mention to Bakasura, who is also super good right now and one of the #1 pub stomp gods for ranked and casuals, because you can just steal everyone's farm, be level 20 when everyone else is level 15 and stomp over people. Worth a try if you like his playstyle. But that's it for the top 3 gods for every role in patch 10.4 of Smite. Was there someone I missed and should have had in here? Maybe Janus with the crazy pen, I was considering him? Let me know down below and I'll catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out you nerds.